Welcome to Becoming a Cook. I'm Charlie Wetzel. Today I want to teach you how to clean broccoli and cut it for three different kinds of preparations. First in spears for boiling, second in florets for stir frying, and third in pieces for roasting. So I've got some broccoli here. The only thing I've done with this is I've rinsed it. So I'm just going to take this edge off to start things off. And this I'm going to do for boiling. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to work my way around the outside of the head and pick off the biggest spears. So you can just see I'm turning it. You can see the light where I can get my knife in. I'm just turning it while I'm seeing those. You're going to get to a point though where it's kind of a tree, and I would like this tree to be pieces similar in size to these. So what I'm going to do, I think I'm just going to give this, and you have to just kind of eyeball it. I'm just going to cut that, and then from this, I'm going to take a look at this and go, about midway is about there. So that's not too far off from my other spears. Okay, now that I've got all this in spears, what I want to do is I want to trim the edges. So this is a bit of a ragged edge. I give this a cut that's like on a 45. If I've got any little extra piece like that, I take it off. And I want all of these just to have that same nice bevel. So this one, you can see it's got a little bit of a lip on either side. I'm just going to trim that off and then again give it that little bevel. I just feel like the presentation is a little bit better if you have this angle. That one's ready to go. And I'm trying to not take off too much off the end because this is all good broccoli to eat. Okay, so here are broccoli spears ready to be dropped into salted boiling water. If I want to do florets, so I'm going to start the same way here, taking these outside ones off. When I get to this area, because I want the florets to be small, I'm actually going to cut this, and I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to trim this and use this as well. So now, if I want this to be in bite-sized pieces, say for a stir fry, that's about as big as I would probably want to do. Anything bigger than that, and people would have to cut them. And the whole point of doing something with a stir fry is you want them to be the size that are bite-sized. So I'm taking off the ones that are similar in size off the outside, the way I did off the big stalk. Now when I get to this, some of these are a little bit small. I don't want something that's that small trying to cook at the same time as something that big because they're going to cook at different rates. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and cut this in half, and then this piece I'm going to cut in half again. Now once again, it's very close in size to that, and because it's got smaller stems, it'll cook a little bit faster. So even though it's a little bit larger, that's okay. So those are florets. The ones from the center are the easiest because they're small. With these larger pieces, you've got options. So this stem is a little bit long. I can shorten it. With these longer ones, I can cut this, and I'm going to go ahead and cut it on the angle, and then cut this, and that's a piece that I could put in a stir fry. This is on the borderline. I think maybe I could get away with it. If it's a little bit too large, I'm just going to cut it in half. So now I've got something that's in the ballpark of the size that I wanted before. In this one, cut that on the bias. Cut that on the bias. I did that a nicer job on that than I did on the previous one. Same with this, cut it on an angle. This one I think I can just cut in half, and it's about the right size. You can see this is a judgment call on all these things. Just going, is it too big, is it too small? They say that you use the right side of your brain for spatial relationships. You just kind of, you have to trust your instincts on this and just go, well, this kind of feels right. And do that enough and you start to get the skill of doing it well. Here are florets and these little pieces here. If you're worried with these that these aren't going to cook, quickly enough, you could cut them in half again. All right, so for my third preparation, my family loves roast vegetables. So I roast broccoli and other vegetables all the time. So for this one, this is kind of a hybrid between the two, but you'll see how I do this for roasting. So I'm starting the same way again. I'm cutting these outside stalks off. And a lot of times, because my daughter Abby is not a fan of roasted vegetables, I'll actually take off these big pieces and make spears out of them for her and boil them, and then the other ones, the smaller ones, I'll do for roasting. But I'm going to go ahead and do all of this for roasting just so you can see. So I've got to this part here. I'm now just going to cut this big piece off, and I'll show you what to do with that later. So similar to last time, I've got these small pieces. I want them a little bit smaller. This is really about the right size for roasting. When I get to something like this, if I were doing florets, I would cut this in half. This is a little bit too big to roast in halves. So what I'm actually going to do is, I'm going to turn this so you can see this. I'm going to cut a third of this off, and then I'm going to drop it this way, and I'm going to cut this in half. So I've cut this in thirds to try to get it to be about the right size. This is the center of the crown. So I'm going to look at this and think, I can probably cut this in half. And I'm just trying to find the middle. And then from this, I can go, well, okay, is this halves or thirds? I think it's probably halves again. And I think these will roast pretty well. And there's no hard and fast right and wrong with this. You're just trying to get a feel for it. This one, this is the largest of the ones on this. I'm actually going to cut this in half. And then I'm going to put the flat side down, and I'm going to cut it in half again. Now, as I said, I don't like to waste anything, so let me show you what I do with this. So this was the center part of a crown like this. What I do with this, I've already cut this end off. I put it, this is upside down based on the way the crown was, and I'm going to trim all these little legs off. But I only want to take the legs off. I don't want to take too much more than that. And then I'm going to look, okay, so there's still some more, and I'm going to keep trimming, and I'm only just trying to take slivers off. Because what I want to do now is I want to take the skin off of this. So this takes a little practice, I have to admit, because when you first do this, you tend to slice off a big chunk of the broccoli and lose a bunch of it. But now, this is for the most part, it's trimmed. And now I just cut this into 1/4-inch slices. And those I can throw right in with my others to roast. So that's how to cut broccoli. So if you need florets for a stir fry, or spears that you want to boil, and by the way, you don't want to steam them. I'll teach you that in another video. Or broccoli that you're going to roast, that's the way you do it.